Welcome to another exciting edition of the MMA Outsider Podcast. I am your host, Richard Anderson Mann, and joining me is the man with a plan, John Buhl. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to do my penance and watch a lot of MMA because I'm probably the only reporter in the world that didn't watch Fedor versus Henderson.
What were you doing?
I was at the Manchester United-Barcelona soccer match in D.C.
And the Red Devils won it, baby.
Yeah, it was actually a really exciting game. There was like 81,000 people there. It was nuts.
It's my boy, Michael Owen. Why is he not on the national team? He's the man.
Because he's old, and because I don't think the English manager has the slightest clue what he's doing anyway, but I don't think we're going to keep our listeners very long if we talk about British football.
That's very true, because today we're going to break down UFC 133. Afterwards, as a little bonus, we're going to have interviews both with Pulver and Razak Al-Hassan, who are fighting on the upcoming MMA Fight Pit card, which is, besides the name, very exciting. Anyway, getting into UFC 133, we're going to break down the main card, sans the Jorge Rivera-Constantinos Philippou fight, because I hate the fight. So we're going to start with Chad Mendes and Hani Yahya. Chad Mendes was the number one contender for the featherweight title and then decided to take another fight and sort of got passed over. But I don't know. This seems like a fight he can win. How do you feel about this, John?
Well, I mean, Yahya, obviously, he has an incredible ground game, but I think in this fight, Mendes is actually going to be the better striker, and, his wrestling ability is, pretty damn strong, and, as far as people thinking maybe Yahya will get a submission on him, Mendes did plenty to stifle Javier Vasquez, and also don't forget that Yahya had a fight with Chase Beebe, a strong wrestler, but not a guy who's known for his straight Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and that was actually a great grappling match, but, Beebe came out on top and was able to get out of some dangerous spots, so I definitely see Mendes being the stronger, more physical, faster of the two, and kind of picking him apart, and if he doesn't get a decision, I think it might even be like a, mid-third round TKO.
Yeah, I think that unlike a lot of wrestlers who have trouble picking up striking, I think Chad Mendes actually has picked it up pretty well. He just has almost like a phobia of implementing it in his fights. You'll see him in fights throw like a nasty 1-2 combination and then just go for a double leg and stay on top. And I think maybe in this fight, and probably the idea with Joe Silva, the UFC matchmaker, was to get him in there in a fight where he could flex some stand-up. All right, moving on to the actual main card. Rory McDonald will try to continue to climb up the welterweight ladder against veteran Mike Pyle. John, how do you see this one going?
It's actually a really interesting fight. Rory McDonald is a kid I've really been impressed with, even in that loss to Carlos Condit. Pyle's a bit of a different challenge than against Nate Diaz. I mean, Diaz is a little bit smaller at welterweight. I wouldn't say not good at wrestling, he just really doesn't try to wrestle because he's comfortable off his back, but that came back to bite him in the ass against McDonald. Pyle, I think, is going to be a lot tougher to take down, but I think McDonald's just kind of on the upswing. He's, entering his physical prime. I think he'll have a little bit better chances in the stand-up, and really I think he's going to give Mike Pyle's in for a long day, basically, is what I'm trying to say without stuttering.
Yeah, I think Mike Pyle is a solid fighter, and he's always had game on the ground and game on the feet. I just think that Rory McDonald's going to be too big and too physical for him, and I think that that's going to be the story of the fight. I think if he does decide to get takedowns, he's going to be able to be on top and dominate that way. And I also think he's going to be able to, score on the feet. So I think it's Rory McDonald's fight to lose. I think a lot of people probably wanted him to take a bigger step up. But, at his age and at his place, there's nothing wrong with just fighting solid veterans and continuing to improve.
Right. And McDonald, like I said, I think with his more wrestling-based grappling abilities, he's going to be a little bit more of a difficult matchup, I think, than Diaz. But yeah, it's not a huge step up. But like you said, no need to rush him at this point.
All right, and moving on to a fight that I don't think anyone thought ever be on a main card of a UFC, Dennis Hallman and Brian Ebersol. How do you see this one going?
That's crazy. Hopefully I see Ebersol with that arrow shaved into his chest again. I think that was probably one of the most memorable entrances I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I have enough chest hair to do that. I don't know about you.
Not quite. No, it'd look more like a mini. I think I could do the arrowhead, but I don't have a good enough happy trail.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I like Ebersol's story, and he did a great job of shutting up a lot of people, including myself, against Chris Lytle. He just went in there and he was tough. He came at him. He was in his face the whole time, and really got obviously the biggest win of his career when probably no one thought he could pull it off. But I'm going to have to pick against him again because I think the way Holman has looked really a lot more physically primed in his last few fights than he had when he was having some of his various physical issues. I think Holman probably has more talent. Well, actually, I have no doubt that Holman has more talent. So, unless Ebersol can pull another rabbit out of the hat, I think Holman's going to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to be picking Dennis Holman at this stage in his career, but honestly, in his last 2 fights, he's looked pretty solid. And I don't know if really it's going to come down to Holman's ability to wrestle with Ebersol.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Ebersol's really been able to defend and stay on top, but I think that Holman does have a chance here to get the takedowns and win the fight that way. Holman's never been a guy who's very durable on the feet. Like, he doesn't take punishment very well. So Ebersol could potentially put it on him and finish the fight, but I'm with you. I think Holman's going to win.
Yeah, and I think Holman will be a little bit more safe on the feet and a little more strategic than Chris Lytle because, whether Lytle had a blown-out knee in that fight or not, he's always, pretty willing to take a shot to the chin. And, he ate a really nasty knee, but I don't see Holman or Ebersol landing something like that in this one.
Yeah, I mean, unlike someone like Chris Lytle, I think Dennis Holman's just happy to win. And I think Lytle is really, to the detriment of his career, been fighting for bonuses to the point now where he might not even be able to fight strategically because he's so conditioned and so worn down from just brawling.
Right.
In a fight that may be a long brawl but might end early, Vitor Belfort will return for the first time since losing to Anderson Silva with the middleweight title on the line and take on Japanese-Korean superstar Yoshihiro Akiyama.
Yeah, I'm taking Belfort in this one. I don't know that I really have. Do I have to explain that too much, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Belfort is the better striker and probably the better all-around fighter. Akiyama wins a lot of his fights by being a sneakily good striker. He throws pretty good combinations, and in a lot of fights, he's outstruck guys that he seemed to be the worst striker than. I just don't see that happening against Vitor. And even if he does get takedowns on Vitor, I just don't see him doing enough damage to make the wheels come off the way other people who have beaten Vitor have. So I think that it's a good fight for Vitor. Hopefully he can get back on track. But then again, you never know. And also, I mean, it's just astonishing the murderer's row of opponents that Akiyama's been matched with.
Yeah, he's hasn't been given it a very easy lineup of opponents, and I don't think stylistically this one's any better for him either. Yeah,
I mean, do you cut a guy like Akiyama after this fight?
Good question. I mean, Dan Hardy has 3 or 4 in a row now, but they're keeping him around because obviously, I think more than anything, just the marketing potential that he brings in the United Kingdom market is just too huge to pass up. And Akiyama is just he's been a guy who every time they've called on him, he's gone up there and answered the call. And with the amount of Asian fan support he could very well bring in, especially as they continue to move into that market even more aggressively, which I think they'll continue doing. He's a guy that you want to have on the roster for that. So I guess you can't rule it out, but I think there's also plenty of reasons that they would still keep him around even if he loses to Belfort.
And that's something that really gets me is everyone brings up the fact that they want to keep him around if they make a push into Japan or they make a push into Korea. If that's the case, why not throw him a softball? I just don't understand the matchmaking. I really don't.
That's true. I really don't have an answer for you there, but I guess to their credit or maybe to the something that goes against them is they're just not willing to do that. Though I think we could say they've done that from some other guys. So.
Yeah, I mean, look at the difference between someone the way like George Soteropoulos was brought along versus the way someone like Akiyama was brought along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between like the Jason Dents of the world and the Vitor Belforts of the world. Anyway, moving on to the main event, Rashad Evans and Tito Ortiz will clash for the second time. They fought for a draw way back at, let's see if my memory will serve me. They first fought at UFC 73.
Damn it. I was going to say 78.
Well, you would have been wrong, so I'm glad I stopped you.
Yeah, I am too.
What's your lasting memory of the first fight, John?
Tito grabbing the cage and losing a point. And for me, that fight, I think Ortiz was better early on, but once Evans finally got a little comfortable and wasn't so shell-shocked or in awe of the entire stage of the event, I think he was starting to impose his will. And I think we're going to see a continuation of that, except it might be a little more in Evans' favor just because he's so much quicker. I think he's got a lot more. He's a lot more aware of himself and what he can do as a fighter. That I'll say right now, obviously, I give Ortiz all the credit in the world for beating Bader when I didn't pick him to do anything of the sort. But stylistically, even if Ortiz is back as he says he is, Evans is just going to give him too many problems on the feet, and even with the takedowns, I think we'll see Evans take him down once or twice also.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on something very important. I think if Rashad Evans takes Tito Ortiz down, I mean, Tito Ortiz is an underrated grappler, but he's never really worked off his back in a fight, and I think that, he's just not going to be able to wrestle Evans the way he wrestles other guys. And let's keep in mind, his biggest win was less than 2 minutes, and I think that's for a reason. Cardio has been an issue for Tito since the Forrest Griffin fight, the first one. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not really expecting much from Tito. I think that it's good for the UFC that it seems like the populace is very excited about the return of Tito Ortiz, and the T-shirt sales might go up. But I don't realistically see him making a run. If he does win, they might waste him in a title shot. Who knows? But I think Rashad is very determined. And I think, he's one of those people who's motivated by disrespect. And I think a lot of people, either directly or indirectly, have motivated Rashad Evans.
Yeah, especially the fact that he was supposed to fight John Jones, and then that got bumped down to Phil Davis, and now it's gotten bumped down even further to Tito.
Yeah, while John Jones defends the title against the guy Rashad Evans beat.
Yeah, exactly. So. Though I won't lie, I'm more excited to see the Rampage fight, but hey. Evans, whether people like him or not, he's earned it. So, like you, I think he's going to take care of business.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, I don't know. This card didn't really seem to be, a lot of people are saying that this card isn't very exciting because a lot of the stuff they tried to do fell through. This card didn't seem very ambitious in the beginning. It seemed like it wasn't really that star-studded. Not usually, but a lot of times when they go to like an abnormal market, they don't even bother to put on like the really killer fights, and I think this is another example of that. Yeah,
definitely. And like I was telling you, I think if this was a Spike TV fight card, I'd say it's a pretty decent lineup. But for pay-per-view, I think it's a bit ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that no one's even said is I may be wrong. I'll have to check, but wasn't the first fight with UFC 73? That wasn't even the main event of the card.
No, wasn't UFC 73 the one called Stacked?
It was Silva and Marquardt was the main event.
Yeah, that's what Shirk and Franca, and actually I remember that whole card, top to bottom, name-wise, looked really strong, and it ended up being really boring.
Yeah, it wasn't very strong outing. Although we did have Alvin Robinson on a UFC card, so we had that.
Yes, and we had Kenny Florian talking about how he finishes fights.
Yes. How ridiculous that looks now.
I always enjoy awkward trash talking.
Well, at least it wasn't his brother's awkward trash talk, 'cause that's the worst.
That's true.
Anyway, before we ramble on too much, we gotta remind everyone that after the break, we're gonna have former UFC champion Jens Pulver, and then after another break, we're gonna have UFC veteran Razak Al-Hassan, UFC veteran Razak Al-Hassan. They are both going to be fighting on the MMA Fight Pit card that comes up later this month. So check out those interviews after the break, and don't forget to check us out next week as we look back at UFC 133.